Have you ever had a boss who made you realize you didn't even want the job? When I started working at that private school, I thought I'd finally landed the perfect IT role. It was small, well-funded, and I'd been hired to lead their move to the cloud. The consultant who brought me in knew my skills in Azure and trusted me to handle it all. He was great, a part-timer who worked a few hours a day and let me run things my way. Our team was small, me, 2 desktop techs, and him. I spent the first few months getting familiar with the systems, cleaning up the network, and setting up the groundwork for the big migration. Everything felt good, busy, but good. Then, just before Christmas, things changed. The consultant's contract ended, and the school brought in a new full-time IT manager. I'll call her D. At first, she seemed fine, a little stiff, but polite enough. I kept working on my projects, although she kept pulling me away from cloud tasks to deal with on-premise issues. Still, I figured she was just getting settled in. By January, it was time for my 6-month probation review. I'd been asking her for weeks to set a meeting, but she kept putting it off. When we finally sat down, I expected a quick sign-off and maybe a few pointers. Instead, she tore into me like she'd been waiting for the chance. For half an hour straight, she listed every tiny thing I'd supposedly done wrong. Small mistakes, delays, even the tone of my emails. She said she didn't think the cloud was the right direction for the school, and that I needed to focus on traditional networking instead. The same networking I had told them during the interview was my weakest area. Then, she said it. You need to think long and hard about whether you really want this job. I sat there in silence while she walked out. I remember staring at the table, thinking about my mortgage, my bills, my family. I'd worked hard, done everything asked of me, and it still wasn't enough. So I thought about it, long and hard, and I realized, no, I didn't want this job. That night, I signed up with every local agency I could find and started applying. Over the next few weeks, I smiled, nodded, and acted like I was improving. In reality, I was preparing my exit. By April, I'd landed several interviews, using a few personal days to attend them. I finally got an offer, a much better one. The new job focused on Azure, paid £7,000 more, and included a 25% annual bonus. Everything I wanted. I came back to work ready to hand in my notice, but before I could, Dee had already booked a meeting with me for 10 a.m. She said she wanted to discuss my new role. Perfect timing. I walked in with my resignation letter in an envelope. She started talking, saying I'd improved slightly, but still wasn't performing well enough. She was about to propose something when I slid the envelope across the table. She stopped, opened it, read it. Oh, okay, She tried to say my notice period was 1 month, but I reminded her that she'd extended my probation back in January, and that during probation, the notice period was only 2 weeks. I even pointed out that my last day would fall right before a public holiday, meaning I'd effectively finish even earlier. She tried to argue that I'd already passed probation, but I reminded her she had made me sign an extension letter, and I hadn't signed any new contract since. After some awkward back and forth, she gave up. Then I mentioned my unused annual leave. I hadn't taken a single day off, so they owed me nearly a full month of paid holidays. She asked if I'd rather take the leave instead of working my notice, but I refused. I told her I'd rather work the 2 weeks and still get the full payout. She clearly hated that. The school was already cutting costs, and now she had to explain to HR why she'd let an employee leave early and pay him for unused vacation. As the meeting ended, I thanked her, sincerely. She looked confused. I said, back in January, you told me to think long and hard about whether I wanted this job. I did, and I decided I don't. I left 2 weeks later. My new job had its own office, my own coffee machine, a mini fridge, and an actual team that worked with me instead of against me. Best part? 3 months after I left, Dee got fired. Apparently, she clashed with several department heads and couldn't handle feedback. So yeah, I thought long and hard about that job, and walking away was the best decision I ever made.